Categorizing quickly. Let's take a look at how to do that. So first thing you want to do is check the rules. Now, in this case, there are no rules set up, but the reason you want to check that first is you don't want to be working in the bank feed and have bad rules categorizing or suggesting what they shouldn't. So go to rules first and correct any rules that need corrected, disabled, delete, whatever is appropriate there. Next thing you want to do is check the app transactions. Of course, sometimes there will be apps connected, sometimes there won't. Sometimes there'll be apps connected and they won't show here where you can see them and work with them. They can have an app connection that's the transactions will be showing up in QBO, but you don't see the connection here. Just depends on the app. And bank transactions you're always going to have. So I'd recommend starting with the credit card and also setting your dates. You're usually not going to be doing up to the present. So let's just say you're doing this year, January to March. Okay, that way you're not categorizing and posting transactions outside of the period that you want to focus on. And then there's some options here that are helpful to select. Some of this is personal preference, but I would have that enabled. And the page size is, you generally want to keep it small because it's going to affect your refresh rate. Although if you're doing a bulk transaction, you might want to have it larger. And other thing you want to check before you start is if you have gaps in your dates, revealing that you're missing transactions. That's no bueno. And of course, you can change by your sort and scroll up and down. To start categorizing, you want to sort by bank detail. That way you have your like transactions next to each other. You can use your rules. You can use your bulk edit more effectively. Note here, you have a filter if you want to use it. We won't be using it probably for anything right now. Then you can start matching. And of course, normally this is great, works fine. There are times when it's incorrect, but in general, you can match individually. You can match in bulk. So here we can accept all these. There's a match. Everything's working great. We're going to accept it. Now, if we would have selected one of these, or I'll just show you, see, I can't do anything in bulk here because, or even from that menu, because there's two matches. So QBO doesn't know which one you're telling it to accept. So to do that, you need to open it, look at your matches. Of course, these dates align. If for some reason you don't see what you need here, you can always click find other matches. And here's your date range you can change. So we're going to go ahead and match it here. And now we just have one. And this is another reason, again, to sort this way, because you'll start freeing up matches. And then you can do things in bulk because it'll just have one match. Have something in savings. There's a match, fine. And then we get to checking our sorts staying, our dates staying. Got to be careful. Sometimes you can lose those and not catch it. These all have matches, so this is pretty easy. Let's just go ahead and bulk this. You can, oops, you can hold down the shift key. Well, normally you can. That's not working. So go ahead and select these. Anything with just one match. And this is matching because there are already bills or there are already invoices or sales receipts, etc. to match to. So we can accept all those. There's something that's uncategorized, it's a rental. So we want to enter the payee here. I like to do this first because that way I discover if the vendor's already in there and it's been categorized before, and then I can use the categorization history. It doesn't look like that's working, right? It's not. There it goes. Of course, I know without clicking on this that there is no categorization history because the vendor wasn't already in there, right? But I do want to create a rule. Most of the time, it's going to make sense to create a rule. And you usually want to use all the accounts so it catches them. I already see something's kind of weird. A rental should be A1 rental, right? But you can test it there too. There's some other conditions you may want to add if it makes sense, like amount. That'd probably be the only other thing you want to use on a regular basis. And category, let's see if there's already something here. Equipment rental sounds good. See, there's a couple there. Probably something we need to do on the chart of accounts to make that more clear. And then normally you don't want to replace the bank memo and normally use auto add. So it said 2 transactions, but I think that's a mistake. There's only 1 transaction in the feed. Now we have something again with a couple. They're close on the date, but probably the one that matches exactly. That frees up that match. Now they already had the vendor, so I'm going to look at categorization history. Hasn't been used. I don't think I can create, yeah, there's no category. So let's add this. Okay. And let's test it. Okay, and cost of goods sold sounds good. Everything else looks good. Just name it so that we can recognize it easily. That took care of that transaction. And we have one more. It looks like we missed one back there. It's going to need to be dealt with at some point. So everything's categorized. Next thing to do will be to look at the transaction list by vendor and see how that looks. Change our date to that range that we were looking at. We want to get rid of some things we don't need. And we want to add split so that we can see it. And let's drag the split up here. There we go. Okay. So this is a good way to make sure that we have things categorized correctly or consistently. This is the category. Of course, this is a bill, so that makes sense there. This doesn't really make sense that it's categorized as miscellaneous. That's a bad category anyway. And opening balance that's not looking good. But since that's tied into accounts payable, we're not going to deal with that right now. That makes sense. This may or may not make sense. Probably does, based on amount, right? These are gas, and then you have one that's greater, that's probably oil. It makes sense that it's maintenance and repair. I'd probably subcategorize that under automobile, so we know it's auto maintenance and repair. And if we had a rule for Chin's gas and oil, I would probably put it something like $75 and under is gas. Anything over is maintenance and repair. Same thing here. We saw on the other vendor. Now we have job materials and cost of goods sold, almost the same amount. That doesn't really make sense. All kinds of other expenses. This looks like some silliness in categorization. So best way to deal with that is see if we have the right tool for the job here. No, I'd probably use the reclass tool, but we don't have that. So just as an example, we try to figure out probably job materials is what we changed these to. That's the oldest, but might need to ask for clarification on that one. If we're not able to really come to a reasonable conclusion, we can put them to uncategorized and ask, or just ask based on the vendor. Same thing here, not clear. And same thing here. So looking for consistency. So need that to be consistent, or at least have a reasonable explanation as to why it's not. Let's look at the profit and loss. This is another good way to see how our categorization went. Look at it by month. And we can see if anything looks goofy. Since this is a parent account with subs, probably wouldn't want amounts in this parent account. So I'd probably move. It's kind of interesting how they have that. Yeah. This looks more like labor. So I'd probably move the landscaping services under the labor. This looks more like their supplies and materials. This would be more of their cost of labor. A little bit unclear, probably tied into their products and services. This is weird. Let's see what's happening with this. Okay, so they have a credit memo to a customer for AR coming back to their income. Okay, fair enough. That could have been a service that was provided prior to January 2025. Notice this is really an extra layer that's not needed, but that's just how it's grouped on the P&L. Again, this is really redundant. It's a parent account. This should be moved. Job expenses, since it's all materials, I'd move this under materials. And if we don't know exactly what it is, then I would just put job materials a sub account. You could just rename it and make it a sub account. May not let you do that since it's the parent, but that's what you want to end up with. Same thing here. You need to move this down where it belongs. And of course, like in this case, you could take a look at the transaction and see what it is. Counsel, that's legal probably. So we want to move that down under lawyer. Probably this maintenance and repair is going to go down under equipment repairs. And we don't ever want to have a miscellaneous category on the P&L. So this would probably be cost of goods sold, Hicks hardware like we saw before. Tim Phil's masonry looks like a contractor, contract labor, subcontractor. Insurance, of course. So that'll help clean up the profit and loss. The other report we want to run is transaction list by date. And let's go, this one, modern view works a little better. And we're going to filter it to look for anything that should be capitalized. So because of generally want to capitalize items over $2,500, and I have to set this date. Let's see. Let's just say okay, nothing there. That's good. Also, you can always save these reports. You probably want to use later. Let's see. So this is that's helpful to save. Yep. And then if there are any uncategorized expenses, if we use that category, of course, and that would be a good that's what we would use to ask about. There you go, categorizing quickly.